I'm going to try and speed walk through this. All right, so I did a project on what I would consider the Riverfront Renaissance of Cincinnati. And here's in my background already. I don't need to repeat that. As for personal inspiration, my parents were longtime members of a German society in Cincinnati, and I went to high school across the river from Cincinnati. And I have a couple of urban geography classes under my belt as well. All right, background. So this is a funny thing from one of the interviews I did for the project. Bill was like, you know, Cincinnati's riverfront used to be dead. It looked really bad on Monday Night Football in 2003. And then some statistical inspiration. So Cincinnati has been losing population in its city limits for half of a century. And in 2020, it finally went up again for the first time. And a lot of that can be attributed to this one particular tract along the riverfront that grew by 1,000 people in that census time frame. And so you can see here, I made a little graph that kind of shows it, the huge jump that happened in that census tract over with the estimated years. And so what I had to do to determine the analysis area, so I wanted to just focus on that track, and I still kind of did, but my professor kind of said, hey, you kind of need to add a little context to what you're talking about, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I like clean boundaries, clean data sets. One census tract, 10 years is very clean, but anyway. So I expanded the area a little bit to kind of compare some other census tracts nearby, and I expanded to include, so you see in 1990 here in this graph, 265 was two different census tracts. It was the two I highlighted on there. And then in 2000, it was still those two. And then in 2010, you see it takes a little bit of a jump of the overall section of that pie chart. And then by 2020, it's one of the main three in that pie chart. So I think that kind of adds a good little bit of context to it. As for scholarly context, because it was a master's project, we have to have our professional articles, our similar projects, and all the technologies that were used to be precisely thorough there. And so professional articles, and there's me plugging my own professional article, but anyway. So one I looked at was some case studies of similar sized riverfront cities. This one mainly focused in Europe. But it was interesting because they were roughly the similar-sized cities. And overall, it said that it found extensive hardscapes might limit public engagement, right? So, you know, if you have a giant wall blocking people from going to the river, then they're not going to go to the river. Anyway, and then another one that was interesting, this project here, they actually came up with the 5 main pitfalls of riverfront development. And they said poor location, inadequate budgeting, mismatched programming, bad timing, and inappropriate design choices. And then, hit the wrong button there. This one was an interesting one because it took a much longer view. It kind of went all the way back to the 1300s and forward, which was quite a longer term view on riverfront development. And this one was kind of the same too, except this one only focused on part of the Shanghai River. And so that was a more narrow focus, kind of like mine was. And then this one, somebody actually wrote an article about the same topic before I did, believe it or not. But I found theirs a little bit limited because it only had like a couple static images and it was like 500 pages of text. And I'm like, that's not really the most appealing to people. And on top of that, it also was kind of, it stopped at 2019, so it didn't kind of see the full context of what had happened. Anyway, so we'll talk about some similar projects. The city of Beaumont, Texas made a ArcGIS Online web map, you know, to talk about how they wanted to see riverfront development go. And the issue I have with this one is it has all these government buildings on here, but it doesn't talk about any partnership from private industry at all. You know, are the restaurants in the way blocking this corridor you're trying to create? What's going on here? So I thought that was a little bit limited. And then on this one, Topeka did a story map, which was very interesting, and I believe Sam just talked about story maps. So the only thing I didn't like about theirs, though, was, again, it was very boxy. It's like not customized at all, very much paint by numbers. But they did say Cincinnati was one of their inspirations. So I wasn't far off track, I guess. And then this map was absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend go checking this one out. It's called Ride with GPS. And it gives you bicycle routes, and it even gives you elevations as you go along and estimated biking time. Really, and it follows the whole trail. It's very impressive. That's one of the more impressive maps I've ever seen. It did not have a 3D component though. And then site design, this would probably call my main inspiration for the project stylistically. This is made by a Chicago architecture firm. And this one was really beautiful because you could click on these points and then bring these pop-ups about the projects. And then it would take you to the project page and it would have a really cool design of the project on there. Really well done. All right, anyway, technology. So I originally looked into using Leaflet, and Leaflet has its drawbacks. It doesn't support a lot of native things that people would expect it to. This is kind of the critique I saw. And then this one was a Google API, and I think that's what site design used. I'm pretty sure. But I found that learning curve a little too steep for me, so I just passed on that one. And then Data Plotly was that little plugin I used to create those graphs really quickly in QGIS, so I really enjoyed using that one. And then Duarte, they kind of talked about some plugins I could have tried to use to export from QGIS some of my information, but again, just so much learning curve for this stuff. So I had a year to complete this, so I was like, And then finally on this one, I did end up going with Mapbox for this project. And some people were saying in there, oh, well, it might crash the GPU and be too bad. But it worked out okay, and we'll see if I think if I time it right, I can show you the main landing page, and you'll see that there's not much glitching or anything. All right, so page methodology here. Like I said, I chose Mapbox, Bulma, and I added a splash screen, and then I added a timeline to the main page to scroll down. And then I took quotes from interviews from people around the area too. I wish I had gotten a few more interviews. I only ended up with 3, but it's a good starting point. So you see here's the main components here. We got our other elements. We got our map box. We got our splash screen. And then here's the splash screen. And like I said, we have time we'll look at here in a second. And then so I had to go through a process to create usable data because I don't like other data. I like to make my own data because it's cleaner. But I attained a footprint layer, and then I identified establishments that were built from 2010 to present. And then I used QGIS to create a GeoJSON, and then from there I built all kinds of stuff off of it and pop-ups using code in Mapbox and JavaScript. So here's the footprints layer, and this website's kind of crazy. This is like downtown Cincinnati advertising itself. Hey, look at all these new apartments we have, all these new restaurants we have. It's a cool website. And then here's where I put in the work to create the fields I wanted, laid out in the ways I wanted. Oop, went one too many there. So I did do that in QGIS, though, before I brought it over to code and JSON. Could do it the other way too, but it'd probably take you longer. And then over here, this is kind of what it looks like. We'll see if we have time to look at it here at the end for a second. But here's sort of my scrolling bar, and here's the pop-ups, and here's the buildings. I made them with 3D with color. Now, I did not make a proper scale for each individual building because, again, that was too time-consuming. There's some buildings that are already in there, like this skyscraper really is that tall in the map box, so. Anyway, in the base layer. All right, so interviews. This is very simple, I guess. I interviewed people on Teams, then I downloaded it, and then I put them into a podcasting website to have it linked in the JSON. And then I also downloaded the transcript to take out quotes from it. And so there's me interviewing people. And there's me using Audacity to convert it to MP3. And then there's me uploading it. And then here's me extracting the transcript. Now, unfortunately, while going through this project, just about every negative possible headline came out for downtown Cincinnati over the year I was doing this project. So we'll cover a few of those today, or it would be malpractice. So the first one, Bob Schindler, he loved how the park along the river, he said, was making it beautiful, making it more accessible to everyone. It's got green space and a trail all along the riverfront right downtown there. Well, somebody decided it was a good idea to light the playground on fire. So that was a really bad fire, burned down the playground, lit a bridge on fire. Took them a couple weeks to fix that up. And then on April 7th, on my birthday, the riverfront flooded. So, and my project finished in May, so this was in April, and my project was winding up in May. I'm like, so many negative headlines. And then, of course, Tyler Payne, he really liked the Banks development, which is basically a commercial development in between both of the stadiums that's mixed use where people live and come and hang out and party, and there's parks there too and everything, basically. And WCPO said, oh no, this is a terrible development. They didn't do the job. There's so much empty space. This is horrible. I found them quite critical. I mean, they said it was only 70% full or something. And I was like, I think that's kind of a win. I think y'all are a little too aggressive there. And then, of course, the other thing, since I've been in high school, my 20th high school graduation is coming up in 2 years. And when I was in high school, they said they were going to fix this bridge that I-75 crosses the Ohio River on. And they still say they're going to replace that bridge, and it's still not been replaced. I don't think it'll ever be replaced. I don't know. Maybe we'll see someday. And then, of course, this headline came out that the Bengals were considering moving. This all happened while I was creating this project, just letting you all know that. And I don't think they're actually moving, but I was like, man, can we just stop with the negative headlines? And then, after I concluded the project, and a couple months before I showed up here, there was a big brawl in downtown Cincinnati that made national headlines. People had getting drunk, I guess, and getting into a fight after the jazz festival. So that was not good. And then after that, just a couple weeks ago, there was a shooting at Fountain Square. So people, again, they're talking about curfews and what can we do to curb the crime problem. And then I just actually opened my phone before I came into this session. And apparently there was another shooting at a bar down there. So I just attract negative headlines, apparently. But I think all that we need to know is that maybe this is all just an overreaction. We need to just accept the fact that Cincinnati is growing again. 1,000 people moved downtown, and let's just all go to the Logger House, and it'll be all right. And this was them reopening the Logger House 2 days after that giant flood I showed earlier. So, anyway, before I killed this presentation, I would be remiss if I didn't show you my actual map output. So this is what it looks like here. And you can see here we have our beautiful slider and our beautiful 3D pop-up. Oh, did not show, did it? Maybe, let's see, maybe I'll close PowerPoint. Wait, did it? Oh, there we go. It's off screen, but here you go. There we go. And you can see my slider here that goes by year, and you can see all the developments coming in that one census tract. That is one census tract. And this one right here, actually, they just finished redoing the convention center. So, and you can see I added in the before and after pictures from Google Street View. So this was a lot of fun. It was quite difficult, though. The coding did take me a little while. So I don't know if I would wish this on my worst enemy, but... And then one critique, this is basically the same exact thing I presented for my thesis defense. And one critique I did receive was, hey, you didn't put in the FEMA flood map. So there's where the FEMA flood line is there, and that area that was flooded on that picture I showed earlier, right there, it literally came right up to it. So not too dumb after all. And there's a giant flood wall right behind it. So there you go. I guess, I don't know what we were at time. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Oh, we got one.
Hi. So did you look at anything on the Kentucky side to compare in the Riverfront or anything? So, I know you said you're from Kentucky.
So on the Kentucky side, I did, in the overall project, I used it for that pie chart. But actually, believe it or not, the Kentucky side has had long-standing, much more established buildings than the Cincinnati side. The Cincinnati side has been basically a giant hole for years because it used to be where they had a bunch of like docks and they just had industry there. So it's just basically empty parking lots. And on the Kentucky side, there's skyscrapers, there's apartment buildings, there's everything. So no, that's not why. So I did not focus on it in this project. I just used it for a comparison. But it's not developed in the same speed as that one side. So.
All right, any other questions?
All right.
All right, thank you very much, Charles.